Meow. This fearless caddis is the raddest, has skills of the baddest, magic, slinging buzzing no status, practically unmatched, runs all of the gamut, in fact, he's a reference games and chatting, bent wizardly hatting, questing, stacking, napping, this cat diversified, witty banter, seeking kitty answers, roll 20 to scamper, tune in, and enjoy the ride, Brady, the RPG cat. Brady, the RPG cat.
Brainy the cat. Brainy the RPG cat. It's a kitty cat.
Hello, cats and kittens, felines and felidae, humans and variant humans, and every race, class, and subclass. Welcome to another episode of Brainy the RPG Cat. Tonight, we're doing Tabletop Lore, and we're going to be reading just from a very short little 22-page single campaign book. This is Crusades, Castle on the Hill, published by Troll Lord Games from Little Rock, Arkansas. And so we've been streaming on one or two additional platforms lately, so I think this is a good opportunity in order for me to reintroduce everybody to the concept that is Tabletop Lore. So, when you are streaming, and you want to be a tabletop influencer, let alone a tabletop influencing talking cat, you have to think about, what your specialty is when it comes to covering tabletop RPG material. And so I've always wanted my specialty to be the ability to actually go through some manuals, read them, look at them in terms of literature and also terms of playability, and then, just present them to you. And so more importantly than, doing this for, existing Dungeons & Dragons 5e books, there's a lot of 5e material that is, we should say that, just independently published and 100% original from little small regional companies all across the United States. And so that is effectively what Tabletop Lore is about. Every once in a while, we take the time in order to look at and review a tabletop manual that might have slipped through the cracks, might be under the radar for just any kind of, how should I say this, any kind of potential casual hobbyist player of Dungeons & Dragons 5e. And so that's effectively what we're here to do. So previously, we were in the middle of reading a manual on the Book of Ebon Tides, which was released by Kobold Press. And we might be getting back to this. I actually might want to, just kind of, like I said, this as a reintroduction. We're going to read a couple of smaller manuals, and then we'll more than likely come back to the other section of that. And we're doing a little bit more reading on, what was that book's name? Richard Prett's Crooked City, The Blight. That's what it was named. And, so we might get back to the second half of that manual. So we try to do our level best in order to read as much as we can without giving away any spoilers, without telling too much about how the players can potentially get over a crisis situation in the book, and just try to keep things focused on just the lore and the storytelling aspects of each book. So thank you everybody who is tuning in here or tonight on Twitter and other platforms. We're going to go ahead and we are going to get started reading this manual. But slightly before we do, let's take a moment. Let's talk about our sponsors. Tonight's stream is brought to you by Dubby Energy Drink. The great tasting, low priced energy drink powder. Follow the link or go to w.gg and use the code BRAINYSETME for 10% off of your online order. Also, tonight's stream is brought to you by Streamloots. $1.99 will get you a pack of official Brainy the RPG Cat online trading cards. You'll be able to redeem those for playing games and special effects in chat. You can also subscribe to your channel and you'll be able to post emotes while I am live on stream. And all of that is available at streamloots.com/BrainTheRPGCat. Okay, so we're getting into the end of the month, so that means, our donation campaign supporting the Trevor Project is also coming to a close. So, the link in chat didn't pop up. Let me try typing that again. Alright. Wait. Doesn't look like I misspelled it. Okay, there we are. Okay. So, help provide assistance and crisis management for individuals in the LGBTQ community through the Trevor Project. Please follow the link in chat or scan the QR code that's in the corner of the screen. So we're just going to collect this until the end of the month, until the end of July 31st. And every $20, and I will eat a Bean Boozled jelly bean on the stream. It was the best of times and it was the worst of times, but it's all for a good cause. So, yeah, please consider leaving a donation for the Trevor Project. Alright, so let's go ahead and let's get started with this little beauty. This is Castles and Crusades, The Castle on the Hill, written by Stephen Chenault, edited by Steve E.G. and Libby Ann. Front cover art by Jason Walton, interior art by Zoe DeVos and Peter Bradley, and cartography by Peter Bradley. Troll Lord Games, Little Rock, Arkansas, 2018 Troll Lord Games, all rights reserved. Published in the United States of America. Okay, so this is the 7th installment of Dragonfold Adventures. It is designed for 3 to 5 characters in the mid to high level range, which is probably the highest level for a single campaign that we have had so far on this show. This party is confronted by the power of the Green Wizard. The adventure takes place along the banks of the Mistbane River, near its confluence with the Powder River. This adventure is a set-piece adventure that pits the party against the might of the Green Wizard and his dungeons beneath the castle on the hill. This adventure can pick up after C6 ends meet. However, it's not necessary to play that adventure to enjoy Castle on the Hill. Castle on the Hill is playable in any campaign or setting. However, if you're interested in playing the world of Ahard as portrayed in the Codex of Ahard, the adventure takes place in the River Basin region of the Dragonfold. From Thompson's Point in the east to the Dolan Drops to the west, and from Bent's Trading Post to the north to the Two Dogs River in the south, it is the realm of the Green Wizard. He dwells in the ruins of a tower upon the southern bank of the Mistbane River. From there, he has terrorized the region for many years. He hounds any who enter his realm, either by killing them or carting them off to his dungeons to torture or experiment upon. He raids Eshel villages and carts those he captures off to be sold at auction on the slave blocks of Haverstraw. He breeds beasts in his dungeons that he unleashes on the whole of the southern Ursal. His is a cruel and wicked realm, one that even the Drakenfold finds abhorrent. He has recently built a bridge across the Mistbane, signaling his desire to begin his conquest. This adventure begins about almost anywhere the CK desires, so I'm assuming that's the stand-in for Dungeon Master or Game Master CK. From Andsmeet to Willowbreak, from Bent's Trading Post to a boat on either river and a trail. If I find a glossary for this, then I will be more than happy to elucidate on that point. The characters need have no knowledge of the tower or its complements to stumble upon it. The Green Wizard Anaboxus is actually a high-level druid. The name Green Wizard is a name given to him years ago, and it stuck. Why he was called that is lost to history. His overall purpose is to create a living idol to the goblin god, Orgelte, and with her power, raise an army of goblins to conquer the Drakenfold and use it as a base of operations to wage wars on the kingdom of men to the north. He came to the Drakenfold forest to do this. I keep saying Drakenfold. I think it's actually Darkenfold. Alright. He was well acquainted with the castle on the hill, as it was called by the locals, and chose it as his lair. At first, he did not want to draw attention to himself, so he did not refortify the tower, but rather made the land around the tower treacherous. He first covered the broad hunter's trail that followed the southern bank of the river, and passed by the castle with all manner of wild growth, so that the trail ended long before it reached the castle. He buttressed the force immediately around the castle hill with tangled bushes and brambles and hedges of briars. He cultivated gnarled, twisted trees to break up the ground and impede travel. He waded into the river and cast Earthquake, breaking the riverbed and creating dangerous rapids for anyone approaching the tower. At last, he summoned a fog and it settled into the area to impede anyone's senses. This last kept the ground always a little muddy and slick, and encouraged a host of mosses and lichens to grow throughout the castle's immediate environs. Once the castle was fortified, he excavated a temple deep in the ground, and through more sorcery created a series of root trees in the temple that allowed him to travel around the forest using the spell Transport via plants. Once settled, he began to cultivate a root ball, shaping it with his own sorcery to appear as an idol to Ogote. He fed the root ball not with water, but with the blood of living sacrifices. He also cast spells upon the root ball, guiding his development into a living idol. The idol is only a short time from establishing a connection with the goddess Ogote. She is an ignorant, cruel, and vicious beast of a deity, and one that the Green Wizard hopes to be able to control. Once he has her eye, she can bestow upon him the power to communicate with goblins far and wide, and allow him to bend the goblins to his will. In this way, he can raise an army and build a kingdom of his own. Only then can he begin the conquest of Kaamar to the north. This will usher in a gauge of goblin rule, the likes of which the world has not seen in many centuries, and he will be its rightful lord and master. Note, the root ball is buried in the ground in the temple, and because it has established a minor connection with the earth goddess Hroth, at its present state of growth, it could be seen as an idol to either the goddess Ogolte or Hroth. Who is the Green Wizard? Anabaxius was born in the wilds of Barrowland to a witch, Phaedril, who ruled a petty realm in her own right. From there, she terrorized the Ursal Road, robbing caravans that traveled from Kaamar to Cleves and beyond. For a time, she grew wealthy and powerful. She did so by selling her captives as slaves to the hobgoblins to the north, and trading the stolen wares of her ill-gotten gains. Her young son ruled at her side, but his mind was bent towards the wilderness and the unadulterated primeval power of it all. After some few years, Friedel's raiders kidnapped a niece of the powerful Baron of Cuddleberg, a high lord of the kingdom of Kaamar, and promptly sold her into slavery. The Baron, an older man prone to fight on the slightest whim, took up the sword, called his elves to arms, and went to war. He was joined by other northern barons and a small retinue of dwarves from Noragad Cam who called him kinsman. Together they marched up to Ursel Road, crossed into the Barrowland, and laid waste to Friedel's realm. They put everyone they found to the sword, excepting only slaves who they freed and armed. They captured Friedel, and the Baron had her burned alive and her body fed to the crows. They pushed on toward the town of Luxor and sacked and burned it. The Baron did not stop there, but led his army after his niece to the Bleached Hills, where several small pitched battles with the hobgoblins occurred. This summoned the attention of the God King, Vistanaj the Mad of the Hobgoblin realm. The Baron fell back into Luxor and fortified it, and the God King laid siege to the town. When word of Vistanaj's attack reached King Luther II in Kaamar, he called for the realm to muster all his chivalry and gather in Cuddleberg. Within 2 months' time, the army was on the march, some 12,000 horse and men-at-arms. They were joined by a host of dwarves, some 500 strong, and an untold number of paladins from the Order of the Holy Defenders of the Flame. The Baron had wind of this, and it fortified his people in their siege of Luxor. What followed was a pitched battle before the walls of Luxor on the plains of the Barrowland. However, few realms in the wide world can stand against the might of Kaamar, for their knights are well accoutred and experienced in battle. By day's end, the God King's army was routed, and the greater part of his host dead upon the field. Luther threatened to pull up the God King's realm by the roots, unless the Baron's niece and all other captives were returned. Several hundred, including the niece, were released and given to the king, as well as a mountain of gold in payment for his trouble. Anabaxis lived through all of this and watched from afar as his mother was burned alive, her people destroyed, and the might of the hobgoblins extinguished, though always evil, for he was born with a pestilence in his heart. The war focused his hate, and like the weak often do, he did not blame himself for his misdeeds and misfortune, he blamed others. He blamed Kaamar and all the people for his fall and his mother's death. For years, he wandered in the wilds, honing his craft and learning all there was to learn about the druidic arts. He eventually gathered some few followers, and they traveled with him, reaping what spoils they could from adventure and raiding. It came to his mind that the only peoples in this world who defeated the realms of man and dwarf were the goblins, and he became obsessed with finding a mode of ruling an army of them. It was not long after that he hatched the idea of the living idol, and sought out a secluded place. Long ago he had plundered the castle on the hill, and knew its strengths and weaknesses, so he moved his operations to the Drakenfold and the castle on the hill. Though wealthy through years of adventure, Anabaxis quickly used up all of his funds. He began to actively deal in slave trade at that point, following in his mother's footsteps. Anyone who fell into his hands were carted off and sold on auction blocks. The money from this and other endeavors allowed him to continue his experiments and amass a small fortune. With this, he has built a small army and houses in it and around the hilltop tower. Most are in a squalid village on the cliffs facing the castle on the hill. Others live in the wilderness, moving from camp to camp. It consists primarily of orcs drawn from the Ilan tribe that dwells south of the tower, though some are men, a few half-orcs, and hobgoblins. He also had several giants in his employ and other monsters beside. The army does not number more than 150 souls, of which 50 plus are usually out scouring the country or guarding the wizard's borders. His alliances, however, extend beyond the immediate army. Playing as a druid, Anabaxis keeps a careful watch on the Drakenfold. He has for years, using a dozen vultures enslaved to him. He knows much of what goes on and who the various people are. He has made no friends, but attempted to make no enemies beyond the Eshel and wandering travelers, for whom he slew, enslaved, or robbed. But this has changed as he's ready to conquer the Drakenfold. To do this, he must seize Ensmeet, Greenbrier, Eastkeep and Bent's trading post. To this end, he's built a large wooden bridge across the Drakenfold. Since the bridge has come up, he does not care whose ire he raises, confident that with swift and sudden attacks, he can overwhelm the better part of the northern Drakenfold and turn it into his fief. In the end, he is, or will very soon, send out a call to muster his army and his allies. The halflings of the north and south and the elves are reclusive enough that he does not fear their involvement. As for himself, he keeps to the dungeons, focusing his own power on the root ball, venturing forth for only the direst of reasons. His primary goal is to make sure the living idol grows and connects with the goblin goddess. However, if need be, the temple beneath the dungeon is equipped with giant roots of oak trees nurtured by the druids. With these, he is able to use a transport via plant spell and go anywhere in Drakenfold. He will do so if he must, otherwise he'll send a lieutenant. The Castle Keeper can engage in one of two types of games with his adventure. One is a simple dungeon crawl, and the other is a larger campaign of all-out war. As a dungeon crawl, it can be used as a simple, though short, straightforward dungeon crawl, whereby the characters find and enter the castle on the hill and attack its inhabitants and engage the druid in battle. As a campaign, the adventure can be expensive, with the Green Wizard beginning his quest of the Drakenfold. To this end, he has engaged hobgoblins to the north, sent forth packs of wereboars, and sends his own army across the bridge he has recently built over the Mistbane River. This requires the DM to keep track of a timeline, as the various enemies of the Green Wizard all move in one direction or the other, as well as the various militias, characters, etc. The other 6 adventures on the C series are necessary for maps, personages, town militias, and other incidentals. Castle on the Hill takes place near the confluence of 2 rivers, the Mistbane and the Powder. The characters can approach from either river or overland from any direction. So, let me see. Okay. Okay, so there is some spoiler material here. Okay. The common knowledge... Okay, so, talk of the Green Wizard is pretty common, and people know of him in his slave trade all over Drakenfold, but his lair is far from the 3 northern villages and the towns on the edge of the forest, so few worry about him. The common knowledge can be fleshed out with any of the 3 ideas listed above. 1, word has spread all across the Drakenfold that a bridge has been built spanning the Mistbane. This is unheard of. No bridge has been built on the Mistbane River in over a century. Longer, really, but few can remember when. Whether the characters are in Willowbreak or Ensmeet, the world travels fast, usually via rangers, coal burners, fishermen, or peddlers. The characters are encouraged to investigate. 2, if the characters have taken an active role in the adventure and the other 6 modules, they have no doubt drawn the attention of the Green Wizard. He sends several minions to attack and kill them as part of his plan to strike all the areas of Drakenfold simultaneously. Or 3, the Rangers of Ensmeet engage the characters to investigate the bridge, as there is word that the Hobgoblins of the North are on the warpath. It defies the scope of this adventure to dictate the movements of the Green Wizard's armies, particularly after the movement of various groups begins. However, he does make some simple moves that start the war, pressing the villages on people on all sides at different times to keep them off guard. All these armies are separate from his army that he keeps at tower. A Castle Keeper should map out... Okay, so CK, that's what it stands for, Castle Keeper. The Castle Keeper should map out a stratagem that the Green Wizard might take, using his army and allies to both attack his foes, but keeps the defenses on Castle of the Hill in order to protect his living idols. A rough outline is follows: send several hobgoblin bands to simultaneously attack Post Road and Eastfold, gauging the response. If anybody goes to help Eastfold, he will strike Greenbrier. Awaiting a response, he will attack Alice. After a few more days, he'll attack Willowbreak. His real purpose is to keep the Forest Rangers, characters, and any militia dispatched by towns and on the road and trying to put out fires so that he can send his main orc army river up to Ensmeet. Alright, so... let me see. 2 druids work closely with the Green Wizard, Veritrix and Tirlag. Tirlag is the older of the 2 and his most trusted lieutenant, for she is fiercely loyal to him in his desire to conquer the Drakenfold and realms beyond. She is rarely in the castle on the hill, however, and almost always remains in the forest, watching or doing his bidding. Veritrix is a battle-hardened druid and believes fervently that mankind must be purified of its weaknesses, and the only way to do this is to unleash the fury of the primeval world upon them. He commands the orcs and hobgoblins in battle. Cheerlag Druid, 8th level, neutral humans vital stats. HD 88, HP 60, AC 20 to 24. Primary attributes are Constitution, Wisdom, Intelligence. Her significant attributes are Strength, Intelligence, Wisdom, Dexterity, Charisma, and Constitution. She uses a variety of weapons, a +4 Defender Sword, a +2 Warhammer Dagger, or a +3 Shortbow. And she wears +5 leather armor. She has a Woodland Stride. She adopted the wolf, cottonmouth snake, and house finch as her toner shapes. She can change into any one of these shapes and back again once per day. Her spells known are 55442. She has a tattoo of Keki on her left breast that grants her +3 AC and wears a +3 Cloak of Charisma. Tirlag is 5'7" inches with a long auburn-colored hair that she wears in a tightly bound tail. She has a disarming smile that gives her a high charisma. Her demeanor is calm and level-headed, and she is rarely given to panic. She is able to convince many people to do her bidding. So hobgoblins. The hobgoblin hives are located in the Gotland Wood. There are dozens of them spread over a wide area. The hobs break into small bands of 10 to 40 and begin rounding travelers on the road. Stopping all traffic on the Reese Road, their intent is to seize both Greenbrier and Eastfold. To this end, they will eventually march forth with several hundred hobgoblins to attack either place. They number roughly 400 hobs, but these are spread out over the northern Drakenfold. A small band remains with the Green Wizard, guarding the castle on the hill. Wereboars range up through the Wingnut bottomlands to Girthap Falls. They cross the Wachita River to attack Alice and head up to Roadsmeet. The Island Orcs, though many of this tribe have gone to live in Bootstrap's Gorge with the Wizard's army, the greater part remains south of the Mistbane and in the Downs. It is for them that the bridge was constructed. The Orcs send a raiding party of about 100 across the river and press Willowbeak. Others begin building flat-bottom boats and are preparing for attack on Endmeats and later Petersboro. They number about 600 warriors and are led by their war chief, a fiercely independent leader named Bonestaff. The Druidic Cabal. He is engaged a cabal of 5-6 level druids to interdict all traffic to Bent's trading post. This has been going on for some time. The druids hide the paths to the post as well as create tangled hedges and impossible brambles to drive traffic away from the post by making people become lost or killing them. The post is out of food and supplies, and both proprietors have left to purchase them. Fog Giants. He has 3 Fog Giants working for him. These stay in the gorge and guard the approaches to the castle on the hill. Borders in the wild. The Green Wizard's domain extends up beyond the tangled brush and the fog that surrounds the castle on the hill. He controls roughly 25 square miles of the river basin. The fog that surrounds the castle extends out from the base of the hall for about 1,000 feet. The tangled forest is about 1 mile along the south bank of the Mistbane River. In order to guard against intruders, the Green Wizard has established a portal of wereboars on both banks of both rivers and 4 observation points. The Eyes on the Land. The Green Wizard has bound a dozen vultures to him through the spell Eyes of the Wild. They continuously scout the region, watching for anything unusual. He can see through one vulture's eyes at a time. He does not always use this ability. He'll only make use of it when something alerts him or is particularly keen on watching a certain region. For instance, if he desires to know what is happening in Endsmeet, he sends one of the birds over there and watches. That is not a significant number of hobs. I would venture to say that is a somewhat excessive number of hobgoblins. But, what do I know? I personally choose not to work with hobgoblins. There's always a vulture flying over or perched near Endsmeet, the new bridge, the castle on the hill, Bent's trading post, and the river. The other 7 range far and wide. These birds do not act like normal vultures and are therefore shunned by all other birds. A ranger or druid may notice the bird's odd nature on a successful wisdom save. They do be stinky. Well, the thing is, I am perfectly okay working with, just standard goblins, because They're not necessarily evil, just misunderstood. What you have to know is that, it's very likely that, if a hobgoblin exists, it's more than likely going to be on the more chaotic side of the scale and often the more barbaric side of the scale. So, things get a little bit sticky involving that. All right. Wereboars. The Green Wizard has bound a small army of wereboars, mostly by promises of plunder and the right to feast on the dead. They number about 100, but are scattered along the river basin from Ensmeet to Willow Break and then back into the castle on the hill. Each band is broken up to 6 to 12 and are led by a lesser alpha boar. The alpha boar himself has moved to the environs of Alice, hoping for the cult to attack that town. He has 12 wereboars with him and will call others the Green Wizard and gives him the go-ahead. They're fiercely loyal to the Green Wizard, but see to him the possibility for greater plunder and more feasting. Thus they serve him, though they tend to fight to the death when their bloodlust is up. Particularly when there is food on the line, they are not going to fight to death for the Green Wizard. Wereboars, their boars, their castle. If a lesser alpha learns that the alpha has been killed, he stops whatever he's doing and moves quickly to kill all the other lesser alpha. If the several lesser alphas are together in combat, they turn upon each other immediately, but once the dominant will flee with the band in order to hunt and kill any of the remaining lesser alphas. Okay, so that's followed by basically what their thinning numbers and retreat plan is, so I'm not going to read that. Alpha Wereboars, HD 10d8, HP varies, AC 22, XP 1050 times 10. They attack with a gore for 2d10 points of damage, able to alternate their form into a human or back again once per day. They have Twilight Vision, Curse of Lycanthropy, regenerate 3 hit points per round, and Ferocity. A lesser Alpha Wereboar, 78, HP varies, AC 20. XP 315 plus 7. Their primary attributes are physical. They attack with a gore for 2d8 points of damage. They're able to alter the form into a human or back again once per day. Twilight Vision, Curse of Lycanthropy, generate 2 hit points per round, and Ferocity. Ferocity allows the wereboar to strike a second time if it kills an opponent in one round. These neutral creatures' vital stats, these are just kind of the standard. 5d8, AC 18, 2d6 points of damage, and then all of their other stats are the same. Alright. The wereboars have a large run in the Wingnut Bottomlands. Here they often drag the dead and feast upon them, celebrating by worshipping their patron Nereid. A large round tree stump, flattened to look like a table, serves as their altar, and both their treasure and food is heaped upon it to sacrifice to the god of chaos. It is convenient, if you are a cannibal, that your patron god is a table. There is one pack of wereboars in here at all times guarding the run. They have maximum hit points. Alright. The Aeonal Dragon, because the bridge is newly built and the key instrument in getting the orcs and his own army across the river, the Green Wizard is particularly keen on keeping safe. To do so, he has employed an Aeonal Dragon to keep watch. The beast dwelt in the Downs for many years, but was enticed up to the Mistbane with a small mountain of gold. The dragon has taken up residence in the north bank of the river, not far from the bridge, marked ID on the area map. He has built his nest in a huge dead willow, but overlooks the river half a mile west of the bridge. That way he can watch the country behind him, a trail on the far bank, and the river itself. Okay, I've been mispronouncing this. It's Laniel. Lawful evil creatures' vital stats. Primary attributes are mental. They attack with claws, a bite, a tail, and a wing. They can attack multiple targets with their attacks in a single round. They are able to bewilder their opponents by scintillating wings, wisdom save, or be mesmerized for 1d6 rounds. Alright. The bridge. The bridge is a huge affair, 50 foot wide, 300 feet long, and spans the river and beyond. It consists of a huge wooden pylon sit in the river bed every 40 feet, and a massive planked timber cut fresh from the downs. It has a low rail on it and a small fortified tower on the south bank. It is roughly 2 miles upriver from the castle on the hill. Aside from the dragon, there are a dozen orcs on a tower for the south bank and a druid encamped several feet upriver. The druid's purpose is to alert the Green Wizard or any attack on the bridge, or anyone's attempt to pass beneath it. And there's stats for the orc warriors, but I'm pretty sure that that's standard. That's monster manual stuff. Okay, there's a 10% that a larger army of 20 to 200 orcs will be crossing over or encamped near the bridge. Veritrix the Druid, his camp is several hundred feet upriver off the trail in some brush. It's not particularly well hidden, but it's hard to spot with a casual glance. Someone actively looking has a much larger chance to see the camp. Veritrix uses the Animal Messenger spell to alert the Green Wizard of anything happening on the bridge by sending a sparrow upriver. It takes about an hour for the messenger to alert the Green Wizard from the bridge. Once altered, the wizard looks through the eyes of the vulture. Veritrix will join the dragon if it looks as if he can overpower any interlopers. He will not fight to the death. If the odds are overwhelming, he'll fall back to the outpost and alert the guards. The vultures. Once alerted to go and spy on the bridge, the vulture takes place and begins circling the bridge. If the battle at the bridge becomes prolonged, the Green Wizard will begin sending forces up it to piecemeal, first from the outpost, then from his own troops in the immediate environs of the castle. The outposts. In recent years, the Green Wizard has amassed a small army. As his deprivations have become more aggressive, as so is fear of invasion. To guard against this, he's set up 4 observation posts. Each is manned 24 hours a day by roughly the same makeup of troops. Each post is roughly the same. They have clearing in the forest and establish a camp. Here they store weapons, food, water, and firewood. The camps are large, poorly kept, and have no real sanitation. Each camp is only loosely guarded. The occupants have long grown used to being left alone. That said, they do keep watch, and it's difficult to sneak up on the camp once somebody is actively attempting to do so. North Post. This set is on the north bank of the Mistbrain River, about 50 feet from the river, on the flank of a 500-foot slope. The post is set on the side of a large fallen cypress tree. The occupants have built a driftwood wall parallel to the top of the tree, making it a very crude fortress. It is not very defensible and easily open to missile weapons from above. Southern Post is set on the woods about a half mile from the cliff that overlooks the castle. From this post, there's no easy way to the castle. West Post, a trail that follows the south bank of the Mistbrain River. It used to follow the whole river's length. However, the trail has vanished beneath the Druid's forest and around the castle and hills. At the East Port, much like the West Post, the East Post is set just within the bounds of the Druid's domain, a few hundred yards from the borders of the Green Wizard's land. Read or paraphrase the following as the party spies on any one of the 4 camps. A stench draws you to a wide clearing cut in the bramble, centered around a huge dead tree. A dozen or more figures lounge about a long, smoldering campfire. They seem relaxed. Some gamble, others pick at the bones of some recent kill, still others sharpen weapons, and others just lounge about. Equipment is scattered about the camp, placed in no discernible order. There are primarily orcs here, though some seem rather large, and several men. A large old tree with only a few knobby limbs dominates the central part of the clearing. A giant refuses to sleep or set up camp with the others and dwells on the inward side of the post, that is, on the side closest to the castle. Anyone attempting to sneak around the camp will no doubt stumble on the giant. Let me see. So, a wizard's realm. So, everything, just kind of below in this section is stats, so I'm just going to skip all of that. A wizard's realm. The castle on the hill sits atop a tall rock formation that is separated from the southern hills by Bootstrap's Gorge and the Sparrowhawk Cliffs. Technically, the rock formation is called Erwin's Hill, or more commonly the hill due to its distinctive nature. Across the gorge are Sparrowhawk Cliffs. These are steep and difficult to climb. They mark the beginning of a large range of hills called the Merrill Plateau that stretch south to and beyond Two Dogs River. Between the two lies Bootstrap's Gorge. The Irwin Hill. The hill itself is said to be part of the plateau. However, time eventually carved out the softer rocks and soils that separated it from under the ground to the south. The hill stands about 300 feet from base to top. It is steep and jagged, with many smaller cliffs and rock formations rising around its base. The rock is extremely hard and has never been good for tunneling or building underground works. The Irwin Hill was settled centuries ago and is covered in the ruins of a network of small walls and buttresses. The Sparrowhawk Cliffs range from 350 to 400 feet in height. A broad tree-covered scree at the cliff's bottom marks the first 75 feet of the cliff, above which are the steep, jagged crags of the bluffs. Long years of erosion have scored the cliff's face with ledges, fissures, crevices, and clefts. Various vines and low-growing bushes and flowers cling to the cliff, rooting in whatever hole or crevice they can find. The Drachenfold receives a small deal of rainfall, and the cliffs are marked by a host of very small, though tall, waterfalls. Climbing the cliffs is not difficult, as they often offer plenty of handholds. The scree itself can be climbed without any attribute checks. Okay, well, I'll stop right about there. Bootstrap's Gorge is deep and narrow through not particularly long. It is roughly 2,000 feet from end to end. It lies between Irwin's Hill and the Sparrowhawk Cliffs. Normally, there's a path, a hunter's trail, that winds through the gorge in the shadow of the cliffs. In the hill, however, is blocked by the thicket wall and a magical fog. The thicket wall. Hedge wall begins just before the Bootstrap's Gorge on both east and west, and is roughly 200 feet thick. It's a twisted tangle of vegetation that consists of thorny shrubs and a wickedly spiked gooseberry bushes, vines, poison ivy, and sumac. This thicket grows a dozen feet tall. In its midst are small hosts of black gnarled oak trees. The oaks are short with twisted, unyielding branches that weave into the thicket. The whole is an almost impassable wall. There is a secret pathway into and through the thicket. It begins on a narrow stair that ends up to the cliff face 20-odd feet, and then dips back into the thicket. All the orcs and other minions of the Green Wizard use this path. The druids, of course, can pass through the hedge without using the path. Okay, so this is so far, just kind of the map of the region that, we've described so far. Okay, so up here, well, little bit of a display gaff there. Alright. So, here are the Bullen Drops, here's the Perth Timberland, here's a castle on the hill, the Sparrowhawk Cliffs, this is the bridge, the Watchtower, the Hobble Forested Downs, and the Sparrowhawk Cliffs on this side. Okay. All the orcs and other minions of the green... Well, yeah, okay. The druids, of course, can pass through the hedge without using the path. Okay. If the path is used, it brings one to the Hunter's Trail, into the gorge, and leads to the Castle of the Hill. So then, entering the thicket, can't read that. Yeah, okay. Assassin Vines, neutral creature. There are assassin vines throughout the thicket on both sides of the gorge. For every 20 feet crossed, there's a 1 in 4 chance of encountering an assassin vine. The neutral creature's vital stats are HD 5d8, HP 29, AC 15. They attack with vines, doing 1d4 damage each, with a failed strength save by the victim, indicating constriction. Constriction means the victim will black out in 3 rounds and will be strangled to death in 3 more, if they're not freed. Okay. The Fog. The Green Wizard has summoned and bound a heavy fog to protect the castle. It covers the whole of the gorge from east to west, entering about 40 feet into the thicket on either side of Irwin's Hill. It is thick and wet and clings to whoever enters it. There are 3 female fog giants that dwell on the base of the Irwin's Hill. They guard the approaches to the castle, however. Upon hearing anyone blundering around in the fog, they immediately investigate. 3 fog giants, a HD 12d8, HP 54, AC 26, XP 1375 plus 12. Their primary attributes are physical. They attack with 2 slam attacks for 1d10 points of damage each. If they use a weapon, usually one made of wood or stone, they wear armor and use wooden shields. So that, a lot of that is really just kind of negotiable. Yeah, that's probably the best way to put it. Okay. The Fog Giant's Hole. At one time, the whole of Irwin's Hill was fortified. Walls, great and small, circle the hill. Fortified barbicanes and fortified gates hold the road and pass. Armories and barracks allowed for its defense. As noted below, much of this is in ruins, but for some of it has remained intact. The Fog Giants have hollowed out a section on the southwestern edge of the hill. They have made their home, cook their meals, rest, and store their treasure. There is almost always one giant in the hole unless they've all been slain. It's perched 60 feet above the floor of the gorge and protected by a 12-foot wall, remnants of the old castle fortifications. The ground is very rocky and always remains wet and slick due to the fog. The giants, if any are there, will hurl rocks on anybody approaching. Alright. The village and the slave pens. The soldiery of the Green Wizard dwell in a small village perched at the base of the cliffs. On the eastern edge of the gorge, it stands on the inside edge of the thicket. Just beyond the reach of the fog, it consists of a dozen or so bunker-like interconnected holes dug in the ground, whose entrances are hidden in the thicket. On the cliffside, there are a host of cages of varying size, stacked one on top of the other, where slaves are kept. Read or paraphrase the following. A foul stench pervades the area. Wow, this whole place stinks! It stinks! A foul stench pervades the area. It is thick to the point that you can taste it. Before you stands a small mountain of wooden cages, each anywhere from a few feet wide to a score or more. They are packed with bodies, some living, some dead. Men mostly, but women and children as well are packed in. Their condition is deplorable, and you know they are meant for the slave blocks in the east, probably bound for mines or the clever pits in some far-off land. Not far from the cages, you spy an opening in the ground, a narrow ramp leading down beneath the earth. Around all this lies more of the thicket, though here and several funnels jut up from the ground, marking some type of underground structure. Okay. Okay, stat for an orc sub-chief, which are, once again, probably just a slightly more advanced orc warrior. Okay. Okay, the bunkers. Each of the bunkers is roughly the same shape and height. A narrow ramp leads about 10 feet underground to a broad open room. The ramps are covered with a door made to blend with a bramble around. The room is held together by a wooden roof supported by beams and has a dirt floor. Each room has a host of sleeping rolls scattered about in several deep cooking pits, the smoke of which is funneled out through the ceiling into the thicket above. Alright, so the climb to the castle. The path to the castle is old but clear to see. It is set about 20 feet wide, though in some places some of the path has fallen away. It winds around the tower several times, passing through several stone walls and beneath several archways. It is paved and where necessary consists of stone steps, however much of it is covered in dirt and plant growth. It is easy enough to follow, but movement is slow and the journey is close to a mile. The path gives way to an open porch some 40 feet wide. It was at one time surrounded by columns and roofed, but the roof is long gone, and the columns rarely knocked down. And so, finally, here we have the description of the castle on the hill. Many centuries passed. The Ithvold stretched from the sea in the south to the bleached hills in the north, and from the Rudop Mountains in the west to the Berguckin in the east. It was a vast forest ruled by the priest-kings of Ithron, who worshipped Tefnut and the Og-Ost. In the south, their borders were protected by the massive tower and castle Edent Orbald, or the Tower of the Blue River. The lords have ruled all of the lands south of what later men called the Mistbane River. Their rule extended even to the sea. The tower itself housed a temple to the goddess Tefnut, stately rooms for the priests and priestesses, nobles, lords, and ladies, the soldiery that defined them, and what millions have served them. The town was made of stone houses with brightly shingled roofs, and a wall to protect them from the goblins and the other minions of the Red God that hunted the people of Ithrom. In time, however, the kingdom of the Ithrom fell into ruin, and their towers passed from the care of men into the wastes of the wilderness. Enel Atbad was one such, forgotten in the deep forest of Drakenfold. It became a haunted wreck of a ruin, and horror as creatures crept into its abandoned halls and made it home. The outer works fell away, wasted by time, and the town was eventually destroyed by the floods and the frequented river valley. Eventually, all that remained was a skeleton of the outer works of the flanks of the hill, and the massive tower that was the heart of the fortification. The outer works in the glory days, 12-foot-high wall flanked the outer edge of the road as it wound its way up the hill. The wall was slightly smaller, 4 feet high on those sections that bridged a gap between two cliffs. This served to protect the road and the castle and the hill castle's major wall. Towers placed along the path punctuated the wall, making it all the more defensible as they overlooked the road and the walls below. Stone stairs led up to catwalks on the walls, which in turn led to towers. A series of barracks were built along the road as well, usually over the road, allowing the travelers to pass beneath. These allowed quick and easy access to the walls and the towers in defense of the castle. The vast majority of the walls and the towers have fallen into the gorge. The road, while still largely intact, is in horrible condition. Many of the stones are split and the road itself has broken away, replaced by a small crevice or a pile of debris from above. None of the barracks remain, and only a few of the towers. They are hollowed-out structures with little to offer but a break from the wind and rain. There are a host of defensible places along the road in the towers, under bridges, buttresses, spans for small groups of women or orcs. There are also plenty of places to hide from eyes above and below. The hill is home to a small flock of feedoth or shovel mouse. These rare but highly aggressive beasts are always on the prowl for food. Their nest is on the riverside of the hill. So this isn't the first time that we've heard of shovel mouse. I think there was also a significant amount of them in the very first module that we read. And I also do think that there is something equivalent to it in the standard monster manual. So, let me see. So they seem to be, a bite for... They have a possessive bite for 1d10 points and then 4 tentacle attacks. So, I think it's something like a monstrosity. And, it's a monstrosity and then it's just kind of coupled with, just kind of feral standard monster. It's kind of hard to say that it's a prehistoric mammal because, maybe it's inspired by the prehistoric mammal, but it itself is not a prehistoric mammal. It is an abomination. The tower itself is massive and is supported by 4 large buttresses. It dominates the river basin in the gorge. Its uppermost works stand some 60 feet above the Sparrowhawk Cliffs, allowing those on the top of the country to the south as well as to the north. It's roughly 40 feet wide, marked by 3 very distinctive features. Amulet's Stair, a set of stairs that winds around the tower's outer wall, the buttresses, and the Priest Walk. Amulet's Stair. The stairs wind around the outside of the river. They are made of stone and braced every 10 feet. They are 4 feet wide, allowing people to pass each other. The stairs are open, meaning to say there's no wall or parapet to protect the traveler from falling. There is no handrail either. They are worn smooth from years of use and erosion have made them become very slippery in the rain. They were built because certain of the priests who occupied the higher floors of the tower were forbidden to spend time indoors. The stairs are sturdy and in relatively good shape, though. Occasionally one has broken and fallen away. These should be relatively easy to navigate. The Priest's Walk. The span is made of wooden beams covered with a thin layer of flagstones. The spandrels are stone as well as the abutments. Originally the span extended 80 feet out from the tower, but time has seen the end collapse into the river below, leaving a jagged end exposed to the elements. The span is still supported by a massive abutment, but is itself supported by a smaller secondary abutment. There are no parapets or rails. The whole is open to the sky. To fall off is to die. Originally, the Priest's Walk was designed as a sacrificial temple. Offerings were made to Og Ost on the end of the span and cast into the river below. Now, to remember this, but theorize that there was supposed to be a second tower on the north bank of the river that would join this one in a massive bridge. The North Tower, or so the tales relate, was never built. The span is safe to walk upon. Okay. Alright. The buttresses. There are 4 massive buttresses that help support the tower. They're 50 feet high and connect to the tower in an inverted L shape. The door is long gone, led to the interior floor, though it is also long gone. Inside of the tower, at one time the tower consisted of 12 separate floors, a ground floor and the roof. Each of these floors housed the lords of the Southern Dragonfold and their families, retinues, and priests. The priests occupied the top floors and the roof, and this allowed those who could pass within a place to stay. The nobles occupied the middle floors, and the soldier and servants the lower floors. Stairs and ladders allowed access to each of the floors, and halls between rooms allowed privacy for various occupants. It was filled with the hustle and bustle of everyday life. This ended many years ago, long after it was abandoned. One of the middle floors, suffering from some structural defect, collapsed, pancaking the lower floors beneath it. This weakened the upper floors, and they followed suit. Now that all remains are skeletal remnants of various floors, some of the staircases, and a few cross beams which have broken off. The rest lies in a great heap of masonry rubble on the ground floor, 20 feet or higher. Only the roof remains intact. The roof, despite years of exposure, has survived almost completely intact. The floor, covered like the priest's walk with thin flagstones, is in good shape, though smooth with time and erosion. Sitting above the forest canopy is avoided any large buildup of debris. Only nesting birds have left twigs upon the floor, and these are gone within a season or two, usually washed away through small drainage holes. What isn't washed away is usually blown away as the wind is forever howling on the tower's high top. 4-foot-high battlements surround the whole roof, allowing one to see far and away in any direction. Drains are set every 50 feet around the rooftop. The roof is elevated a few inches higher on the east side of the tower, forcing water to flow down and off the tower. All of this is served to protect the floor from water damage and keep the roof intact. The entrance, as noted above, the path leads to a broad column porch that leads to the tower entrance. The columns are long gone, only the bases remain. The flagstones are in decent shape and lead to the entrance of the tower, which at one time possessed 2 doors. Now the doors are gone, and a broad open entryway leads to the interior. Within is a pile of rubble. The tower is old, about 5,000 years old, and made by human smiths with dwarven assistance and magic. Anyone skilled in stonework can approximate the age of the tower itself. Okay, so some readable text. As you pass beneath the lintel, a huge mound of rubble greets you, heaped in the pile of the hollow tube of what was once a tower. Clearly the floors above have collapsed, pancaking on one on top of the other until they crashed on the ground in a large pile of masonry, wood, and debris. Only the roof far above remains intact. That, broken beams and remnants of floors cling to the tower walls high overhead. A few sets of stairs remain as well, beginning where floors once stood and ending in similar vacancies. Alright, so take a look at this first map. This is what the tower entrance looks like. And then, so everything here is that there's an entrance that goes up to a castle, and then an area that goes downwards into an underground cave, which was what we're going to be reading next. Beneath the tower ruins lies the halls of the Green Wizard. He allows few to enter the halls, preferring the silence for his own experiments and studies. The various levels of the dungeon are connected by a series of long stairways. These burrow deep into the mountain, crossing back on themselves before they reach the level below. Each stairwell is roughly 30 to 36 inches wide and about 6 feet high. The walls are made of stonework, but the ceilings have sagged in places, and taller people have to duck to avoid hitting their head. Despite the moisture in the air, the stairs are relatively dry, particularly the further down one goes. The Green Wizard spends a great deal of time in the lower levels of the dungeon, contemplating the root ball that is the source of all his plans. He sleeps upon the floor of that room, having no bed nor furniture. When he's not in a room, he uses the living pillars to travel throughout the forest. The castle keeper should determine whether or not he's in with the dungeon. If he is, as soon as the Hydra attacks, he's alerted to the character's presence. Well, that's another spoiler. There's a Hydra in here. And so at least I was going to have to say that there was a Hydra in here. Okay. I'm going to skip this section about a trapdoor. Okay, level 1. The room contains only one large hall meant as a room to give the Hydra located in the room beneath it. There's enough room to fight multiple foes. The entry hall is empty. The broad chamber has a stone floor, though unlike the stairways, it is much scarred. Flagstones have been torn out, sections of the wall damaged, and several scorch marks in the blast pattern mar the wall, ceiling, and floor. So, only reading the descriptive sections of this is going to make this a little bit sparse. But, you know, Once again, just to avoid, giving away too much about how the actual adventure works. I soldier on. On do I soldier. Alright. Room 3, Cavern of the Hydra. Down a twisted, cavernous tunnel lies a large cave where the Pyro Hydra calls home. Roughly 30 by 40 feet in size, the floor of the cave is broken by 3 large shelves that rise towards the back of the room. Here, the Hydra has dug out something of bed, and the rock he could not have burned so often it became brittle and broke away. He nests here, curled up into a ball of pent-up rage and frustration. The room is extremely hot, about 90 degrees. With the Hydra, it is much higher, about 120 degrees, making fighting in the confined space a nightmare. Okay, so, level 2. These contain the dining quarters and the sleeping quarters for the Vectrix, as well as a guest room. They're largely empty unless the Vectrix happens to return. Unless Vectrix, who was, I believe, the alternate druid. The under-druid. The subordinate druid. The dining hall. Barren before a stone table in the center is tall, made for the diner to eat while standing up. There are 4 masonry bowls stacked at the center of the table. A water fountain built into the wall trickles water into a basin that in turn drains into the wall. The basin is about 18 inches in diameter. Veratrix's quarters. This room is where Veratrix lives. It is sparsely decorated. A stone bed with a bedroll stands in the far corner, and a slop jar for waste is at the foot of the bed. Against the wall stands a wooden mannequin upon which Vectrix hangs his armor. Several sets of clothes, a cloak, and a spare pair of boots are bound up tightly in cords and stored in the clothing net that hangs from the ceiling. The most unusual aspect of the room is a thick trunk-like root that grows from floor to ceiling in the corner room opposite of the bed. This allows Vectrix to come and go from the room through the use of a transport via plant spell. Okay. Room 6, the guest quarters, is for guests. It has a stone berth and a slop jar. A clothing net hangs from the ceiling. The slop jar does not appear to have been used any time in the recent past. Level 3 contains Anabrax's private kitchen, torture hall, library, and prison cells. The open hall, the stairs empty into this room, 1 doorway and 1 closed door. Room 8 cells. 8 cells in the cell block. They're generally kept full with 3 or 4 astral in each of them. There are captives that the Green Wizard uses to sacrifice to the root ball or experiment on. The corridor is narrow and dank. 8 doors line the walls, each with bars on tiny windows. They are locked with heavy padlocks. The vague scent of unwashed bodies hangs in the air, but it's suppressed by a sweet scent that conjures image of a quiet glade on a peaceful evening. You see moss growing in hanging patterns from all along the center of the hallway. It is dark green with tiny flowers sprouting along its stalks. It's obviously here to mask the scent of something else. It's kind of a sleeper campaign. Not much on the surface, but there's something there. Something deeper. Something evil. And that's kind of, kind of the impetus of this, because it's trying this is obviously trying to do 2 different things. Is that the first thing it's trying to do is it's trying to outline the entirety of a single dungeon, and if it's possible, you could just kind of run this within 1 or 2 sessions and only use the dungeon section. They're saying that if you want to expand upon it, what you need to do is you need to use the description of the length of the armies that are outside of the castle and around the valley in order to put together a larger campaign that is centered around warring with the Green Wizard and preventing his larger plot. So that's really just kind of I feel like a lot of these campaigns, they have a dichotomy. There's just one way in order to extend it. There's one way in order to keep it sparse. And this is really the line in which this is drawn. If you want to do it, if you want to play the short game, then you go through the dungeon. If you want to play the long game, then you start working on the campaign and the maneuvers of the Green Wizard soldiers. All right. So, there's this section here. The Eshel are generally in a deplorable state, unfed and with little access to waters. They have not recovered from the wounds that they have suffered in battle, nor have they been treated. They are all warriors of one stripe or another. Alright. Okay, and skip a lot about, you know, how to, about any attempt to rescue. Okay, room 9, the laboratory. The room is full of foul and smells of blood and filth. A long table in the center of the room has 4 iron bands attached to each other, clearly a place to bind captives. The table is sorted all across its surface, a clear sign of blades chopping or slicing into it. It is stained a dark red. A variety of implements hang on both walls, from pliers, cutters, and forks, to jars of various poisonous herbs, mushrooms, and tins of deadly fungi. A fountain and a small stove allow for both fresh water and a place to boil or heat instruments to brand or simply burn. Anabraxius is an unkind man, driven by his lust for power. If he ever had compassion for anything, it has long since been lost, eroded through his countless acts of cruelty. His end has always been the same: power over others and revenge. The laboratory has played host to many demented attempts at snaring others into his will. Here he has prepared the sacrifices, broken the will of the strong, tested drugs and elixirs on some, and cruelly exacted revenge on the flesh of those who crossed him. There is little of value here to any that would be a would-be torturer. On the shelves there are various ointments, all for causing pain. One in particular is dangerous to any who open it. The kitchen. The door opens to a long, extremely hot room. Here Anabraxius cooks the meat that his magical bowels cannot not. That's the way the sentence goes. The door opens to an extremely long room. Here Anabraxius cooks the meat that his magical bowls cannot not. I think they mean cannot eat, and that's a typo. And there was just a little bit of word replacement going on there. A single long fire pit dominates the center room, 3 feet wide and 20 feet long, and is filled with stones burnt black. The fire pit is always alright, fueled with a fire chemical bound to the druid's service. An 8-foot-long table sits across a wall with a half-dozen wooden boards and 3 long-handled meat forks stacked on it. Meat is set on hot rocks, cooked and lifted off onto the plates. The elemental that resides in the fire pit is not particularly strong, nor is it there of its own free will. It is bound in service and wishes nothing more to escape. If Anabraxius is near, he will order the elemental to rise up and attack. If he does so reluctantly, pulling his punches and harboring his strength to kill the druid if any opportunity should occur. Okay. Level 4, the Lair of the Green Wizard. Here he sleeps upon a patch of dirt. Tirlag dwells here as well, though she is rarely in the room, spending most of her time doing his bidding in Drakenfold. The pilloried room is bowl-shaped, the east and west corners being some 40 feet higher than the center. The secret passage empties out into the corner of the room between 2 large pillars of wood. Read or paraphrase the following. You enter a dirt-floored cavern. The walls are stone but broken, with many fissures and crevices. Tall root-like trees adorn the walls, evenly spaced every 30 or 40 feet. These are like pillars, but it quickly becomes apparent that they do not support the cavern above, but rather grow through their main trunk and thousands of tiny roots into the dirt of the cavern floor and the rock of the cavern ceiling. The room itself is bowl-shaped and climbs up into the darkness to the left and right. The cool air is fresh and smells of dry earth. Anabraxius sleeps in the upper portion of the chamber. A small concave section is noticeable in the dirt. Beneath this is where he buried his treasure. Okay. Okay. I'll go on to this section. This is the root ball. Taking the root ball to ground hallowed in the name of Hroth will allow it to transform into a powerful living idol of that deity. Hroth will eventually bless it, allowing the earth around it to become magical. Eventually, once a root has grown into the ground, the temple will become a site of healing. Anyone entering this area of the idol who makes an appropriate sacrifice is healed, as with a heal spell. If left alone to grow in the blood-stained soil or earth, its latent evil will eventually dominate the idol, and it will grow into a ball of tangled evil where goblins and other such foul creatures find a refuge. It will serve to heal them and instill in them a power like no others, doubling all of the dice and of the idol's worshippers. And so that is honestly, that's the extent of it. basically, battling the root ball is probably the final boss of this campaign, as opposed to, actually fighting the Green Wizard or the Green Wizard's underling. That's kind of what the build up to all of that is. And, so I think this is a pretty decent campaign, as I've noticed, in the same way that Devin noticed, that there is just kind of seems to be a little bit of a dearth when it comes to slightly more flavorful storytelling. It's just really focused on what the particulars of the campaigns are, and this really has to do with the fact that this is kind of a single campaign. There's more under the surface, and you would find more under the surface if you were to read other Castles and Crusades books that are subordinate to this one. As a matter of fact, let me go ahead and let me look to see if I was given any in this humble bundle. Let me see here. Maybe humble bundle. How many different Castles and Crusades do I potentially have here? Let me see. I'm seeing Death in the Trekland by Davis Chenault, different author. This is an 81-page manual. The Player's Handbook for Castles and Crusades. That's something that we might potentially read sometime in the future. So we can get more from the actual player's perspective when it comes to this. So, yeah, that's effectively it, is that we have a different campaign, and then we have the Player's Handbook. And that's the extent of what we're going to learn out of this RPG World's Humble Bundle that I bought. It's been almost a year at this point. So, maybe that's going to be the very next thing, is that we're going to go from this into reading the Castles and Crusades Player's Handbook. So, we have... we've only been an hour into this stream. And it was really since then, I'm coming back to this segment, that I'm not going to try to venture and then start to read something else. Because, I wasn't prepared for how long that this was going to be, and that's just kind of telling about, how unprepared I would be if I were to immediately start reading something else. But I'm glad that we're back with this. It's very likely that we are going to, make sure that, this is a feature once again that we do every week. And while I'm still working on the schedule in the background, we'll come up with a time that we can regularly do this so people can regularly tune in. I like that. I miss Tabletop Lore a lot. I appreciate that. I'm so glad that, I'm reaching somebody with this very dry, literati style glance at my most beloved hobby of tabletop role-playing. So, thank you everybody for tuning in to Brainy the RPG Cat. I remain Brainy the RPG Cat. Once again, let's have a moment. Let's talk about our sponsors. Dubby Energy Drink. Drink Dubby. The affordable and flavorful energy drink powder. Follow the link or go to dubby.gg and use the code BrainySentMe for 10% off of your online order. Also, streamloots. Subscribe to the channel. $1.99 will get you a pack of 3 exclusive Brainy the RPG Cat online trading cards. And you can also use this to provide an independent subscription to the channel, which will allow you to post emoticons on the screen during the stream. During the stream. Streamloots, 100% of the money that comes from Streamloots goes directly to the channel. So it is, it's just extremely helpful and extremely beneficial for us, especially now that we're branching off into some other platforms please consider joining us on streamloots.com/BrainTheRPGCat. And of course, we're running towards the end of the month, so, there's still some time remaining in order for you to donate to our campaign supporting the Trevor Project. Donate to the Trevor Project to help provide assistance and crisis counseling for LGBTQ youth. Go ahead and scan the QR code that's in the corner of the screen, or go to tiltify.com/@BrainyTheRPGCat. tiltify.com/@BrainyTheRPGCat in order to look at the campaigns that we're going to continue to have open. Alrighty, folks. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. For those of you who are watching on Twitch, we're going to go ahead and we're going to do a raid now. Let's see. Who would we like to pay a visit to right now? You see Morgan. Also, Corey, Janelle, Cripple Kills. Let me see. Nude Anarchy. That one might be interesting. Let's see. Maybe. Let's. Magic Zomboid. Okay, so I believe that we are going to go over to Rocco Ferrand. Right now he's in the middle of playing a game of GeoGuessr. So we're going to learn something about geography slightly after I sign off right now. So thank you everybody once again for tuning in. Remember, BRINY means smart. Nothing's too hard if you use your head. Always be the change that you want to see in the world. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Have a good night, everybody, and thank you very much for watching.